Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, making a work table for my Bader BIII belt grinder. The belt grinder is really the foundational tool for most knife makers, and recently I've been kind of on a little spate of making mods and additions to my Bader BIII belt grinder. So we're going to jump in with just another one in that series. For this one, we're going to make a work table. If you're using jigs or other kinds of things where you want to be able to move stuff back and forth in front of a flat platen in particular, then it's nice to have a really big work table. The original table that I had with my Bader, really more of a tool rest than what you would call a work table. So I wanted to make one that is nice and big that I could move sizable jigs from one side to the other with good control. FYI, if you want to do something similar, I've got the plans that I made in Fusion 360 all available on my Patreon site. If you want to kick in and help a little bit to the channel, you get the benefit of a whole raft of plans that I've got on there, various knives and, all kinds of knife making tools. All right, let's jump right on into it. Other than a variety of bolts and two little adjustment handles, this project will be made entirely from these two pieces of mild steel. One is a piece of 1 1/4 inch square bar, and the other is 1/2 by 4 inches. Could the project have been much more lightly built? Yep, but anything worth building is worth overbuilding. Seriously though, rigidity's king when it comes to shop tools. The more mass, the more rigidity, so I wanted a nice, steady table here. I'll begin by cutting the bars up. The way this is going to work, I'm building a sort of shoe which will mount onto my existing platen. It'll work like the shoe, or whatever you want to call this part, that accepts the attachment arm for the grinder. Then the table will be made to slide in and out exactly the same way, so you can take it on and off easily when you don't need it. I don't want the table permanently attached here because tables get in the way if you don't specifically need them. But I do want it to be convenient to go on and off. The current little tool rest not only is too small, but it's also kind of a pain in the neck to put on and off. I want this really fast. Basically, the shoe will have two flat plates on the sides and two guide sections or spacers in the center. After descaling the bars, I'll start drilling a bunch of holes that'll be used to hitch everything together. I'm using 1/4 screws for everything. So all of the 1/4 inch holes I drill will be clearance holes, and the smaller holes that I've drilled with the number 7 drill will be tapped. All the holes that are drilled with the black drill are the number 7 holes. That's 201 thousandths. And then all the ones that are drilled with a sort of gold looking drill are 1/4 inch holes, and those are the clearance holes. Drilling 2 spacers. The side plates. I'll also drill mounting holes on one spacer. I should mention that I changed the location of these holes during the build without entirely thinking the whole thing through. Kind of put me in a you can't get there from here situation with the mounting holes, so I had to move them later. The plans that you'll find on Patreon show the corrected location for the mounting holes. But, of course, if you're doing this on any other style of grinder, you'll need to adjust your mounting approach anyway. So that's something you may well have to figure out on your own anyway. You'll notice in 2 instances, I also drill larger 11/16 inch holes. These will be used for the adjustment handles which clamp the arm into place, working just the same way as the attachment arm for the grinder. And also I'll drill holes in the 18-inch wide work table itself so that it can mount onto the arm. Now, milling out a clearance slot so that the table can be pushed in to surround the platen. This gives you a little more security when running things back and forth on the platen. Whenever I could, I used cap screws, but in several locations it was important that I used countersunk flathead screws so as to sink the heads flush with the surface. Now you can do this on a drill press or a mill or whatever, but I find that when you do it by hand, they actually chatter a little bit less than they would when doing it on a big rigid machine. Here I'm disassembling the platen from my Bader and then drilling the mounting holes for the shoe. Next, I'll surface the work table with a fly cutter on my mill. This isn't entirely necessary, but knowing that I'm going to be using jigs, the more precise your work surface, the more precise your grinds will be coming off those jigs. Now, a whole bunch of tapping. Look, I have all kinds of elaborate tapping equipment in my shop, but frankly none of it likes tapping 1/4-20 threads all the way through a 1 1/4 inch piece of steel. Here I'm demonstrating a bunch of different methods for tapping. There are a bunch of ways from a design standpoint that I could have avoided all this tapping, but all of them would have resulted in somewhat less rigid and precise fit-up. So I ended up going with this hateful tap fest. I'm not saying I broke any taps doing this, but alright, so we'll show kind of how the sub-assemblies fit together. And then here's how it fits onto my grinder. It's a little bit of a tight fit, avoiding interference between the adjustment handles and the belt change handle. But I looked at all this ahead of time and made sure that the clearances would work. So it all does work fine. I use these adjustment handles that I bought from Grainger. A key point about them is that you can pull up on them and reposition the handle location. There's a little spline in there that engages, and you can slip it around or engage it, whichever one you want. If your handles don't have this feature, the top handle in particular will not work here because it'll bind up against the main adjustment arm. In the interest of getting the video out as quickly as I could, I didn't show painting it, but eventually I will paint it, and I'll also make some small changes in the mounting hardware. But otherwise, good to go. Thanks for watching, guys. If you feel like you got something out of this video, don't forget to subscribe. Also, click on the link to Patreon for a great way to give back to the channel. Plus, check me out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Links in the description. If you want something sharp and pointy, maybe a gift for yourself or one of the cooler people in your life, check out my Tactics Armory website and pick up one of our tactical or outdoor knives. And finally, if you want to learn to make hamones or Japanese swords, check out WalterSorrellsBlades.com, where you can find videos about how I make hamones, as well as forging, mounting, polishing, and fittings for Japanese swords. Thanks, and see you soon.